Most people believe intelligence is measured by grades, IQ, or how quickly someone speaks. But psychology suggests some of the deepest forms of intelligence only reveal themselves when a person is completely alone. The habits you practice when no one is watching often say more about your mind than the achievements you display in public. If you naturally do these 12 things alone, your brain may be operating in a way that's far rarer than you realize. Watch until the end. These aren't signs of being antisocial. They're how highly reflective, psychologically intelligent minds think and grow when no one else is around. Most people assume someone who spends time alone is antisocial, sad, or struggling to find friends. But what if the opposite is true? What if some of the sharpest, most emotionally aware people prefer their own company, not because they're broken, but because something in them works differently? Solitude isn't a flaw, it's a signal. And if you do the 12 things I'm about to describe, alone, on purpose, without being asked, your brain is operating at a level most people never reach. It's a quiet Saturday. Your friends are out somewhere loud. You're sitting somewhere still, just thinking, not about anything urgent, just processing at your own pace. And a tiny voice asks, "Should I feel bad about this?" That voice isn't yours. It was placed there by years of being told that solitude is something you resort to, not something you choose. Number 1. You think through problems alone before asking anyone. Most people's first instinct is to text someone, get a reaction, outsource the discomfort. Yours is to sit with it first, turn it over, look at it from a few angles, get frustrated, calm down, think again. This is autonomous thinking, genuinely rare, because most humans are wired to outsource cognitive discomfort. It feels easier to get someone else's take than to wrestle with your own uncertainty. But sitting with a problem alone builds what psychologists call an internal locus of control, the belief that your own reasoning is worth trusting. People who do this tend to make better decisions over time, not because they're smarter on paper, but because they've practiced thinking without a safety net. Number 2, you process emotions alone, quietly. This is different from being emotionally unavailable. Very different. Some people go quiet because they're shutting down. You go quiet because you're actually doing the work. Sitting alone, asking yourself honest questions, feeling the thing fully instead of performing it for an audience. This builds emotional granularity, the ability to name exactly what you're feeling instead of just bad or upset, the specific texture of it. That specificity is linked to better emotional regulation, stronger relationships, and better mental health overall. Most people never develop it because they never sit still enough to feel anything clearly. Number 3, you have solo rituals nobody knows about. A specific walk, a playlist only for when you're alone, a few minutes of silence before your day starts. Nobody assigned these, they just stuck. This is self-authorship. You're constructing your own inner world instead of waiting for the outside world to hand you one. A lot of people who do these things quietly feel guilty about it, told, directly or not, that preferring solitude means something's wrong with them. So they perform extroversion they don't feel and shrink their inner lives to seem normal. What gets lost is something hard to recover: trust in your own mind. Ironically, the people pushing them toward that are often the ones afraid of their own silence, because alone, there's nowhere to hide from yourself. Number 4, you make big decisions without needing consensus. You'll ask for information, gather perspectives, but when it comes to something that actually matters, a job, a relationship, a move, you go somewhere quiet and make the call yourself. You don't need 5 people to validate it before you feel okay. Social psychology has shown for decades how strongly humans default to conformity, especially under uncertainty. When we don't know what to do, we look at what others are doing and mirror it. You've learned to distinguish between input and instruction. Other people's opinions are data, they're not your answer. That's intellectual independence, and it's genuinely hard to develop. Number 5, you enjoy your own company without needing to justify it. Not tolerate, enjoy. There's a version of solitude that feels like exile, and a version where the quiet feels full, not empty. Psychologists call this self-companionship, and it's one of the strongest predictors of long-term well-being, stronger than wealth, achievement, even relationships. Number 6, you reflect on your own behavior without being asked. This one is probably the most telling. Maybe at night, maybe after a conversation that bothered you, you find yourself asking, why did I do that? What was I actually feeling? What would I do differently? No one prompts it. There's no external pressure, it's just something you do. This is unprompted self-reflection, a marker of what developmental psychologists call a post-conventional mind. someone whose moral and cognitive compass is genuinely internal, not just a reaction to external expectations. Most people only reflect when they're forced to, when something goes badly wrong and someone calls them out. You reflect preemptively, quietly, on your own time. Number 7. You talk things through out loud, even alone, muttering while pacing, narrating your own thinking under your breath. This is self-directed speech, and research shows it sharpens focus. Saying a thought out loud forces your brain to commit to a clear sentence instead of leaving it vague. Number 8. You replay old conversations to understand them, not to punish yourself. Not anxious spiraling, studying the moment like game footage. This is retrospective processing. Most people either drown in regret or bury the memory. You do a third thing, you study it calmly from a distance. Number 9. You catch your own patterns before anyone points them out. You notice you always get defensive around a certain topic, or you always shut down in a specific kind of argument, or the way you procrastinate always follows the same shape, and nobody had to tell you. You caught it yourself, alone, just by paying attention over time. This is metacognitive self-monitoring, one of the more advanced markers of psychological insight. Most self-awareness in people is reactive. Someone else names the pattern first, usually during a conflict. Yours is proactive. You're running a quiet audit on yourself that most people never think to run. Number 10. You'll sit in an awkward silence instead of filling it with small talk you don't mean. At a dinner, in a group chat, at a gathering, you're capable of saying nothing when you have nothing real to add. Other people rush to fill silence because it feels socially risky to let it sit. You've made peace with the discomfort. It doesn't mean you don't care what people think. It means your need to be liked in that exact moment isn't running the show. You've decided a real silence is more honest than a fake sentence. Number 11. You'll quietly change your mind about something and never announce it. You used to believe something strongly. Somewhere along the way, alone, thinking it through, you didn't believe it anymore. No post, no explanation. You just updated and moved on. This is intellectual humility in its purest form. The willingness to be wrong privately, without needing credit for growing. Most people's beliefs are tangled up with identity and audience. Changing your mind in public feels like losing. You've separated the two. Your beliefs answer to reality, not to who's watching you hold them. Number 12. You can do absolutely nothing for a while and not feel the need to explain it. No podcast, no phone, no task. Just sitting, staring at a wall, watching light move across a room. Other people see unstructured time as wasted time, something to justify immediately. Neuroscientists point to something called the default mode network, a system that activates during idle, unfocused moments and is deeply tied to memory integration, future planning, and creative insight. Your brain isn't idle when you're doing nothing. It's doing some of its most important background work, and protecting that empty time without guilt gives your mind room most people never allow themselves to have. None of this is loud, none of it is flashy. You won't get a trophy for sitting alone and thinking deeply. But these things build a mind that trusts itself, an intelligence that isn't measured by tests or degrees, but by the depth of your self-knowledge. Most people never get there, not because they can't, but because they never slow down long enough to find out who they are when nobody's watching. You already know how to do that. That's not nothing. That's everything. If this helped you see your quiet habits differently, share it with someone who's always felt misunderstood for enjoying their own company. Thank you for watching, and remember, the rarest intelligence isn't always the loudest in the room. More often, it's the one that learned to grow in silence before the world noticed. See you in the next one.